Well, guys, welcome to Better Talks. I'm here today with a special guest, and I'm going to get him to introduce himself to us.
Thank you for having me on Better Talks. My name is Kunal Desai. I'm one of the co-founders of this tech company called Meal Deals.
So share with us what's your background, your upbringing.
Sure. So I've had a pretty cool life, I would say. So anyways, I'm biased. I grew up in India, in Mumbai, and grew up in a typical middle-class family, had a good luxury life. I traveled the world as a kid, played sports, just parents trying to get me to swim and play tennis. I sucked at every sport, by the way. And then at 15, my parents immigrated to Canada. So we all moved to Toronto. The adjustment period for me was quite difficult in the beginning. Coming from a big city like Mumbai, and when we came to Canada in 1998, not as big a place, and plus not as much ethnic presence as there is now. And so it was a very cool upbringing, but it was also very difficult because I didn't have any guides or any mentors or any big brother or figures like that to look up to.
Yeah.
So that led me into a whirlwind of trouble. So like after high school, I got into McMaster for science. I got kicked out of university after 3 years because I never went to class. I remember one time I went to a class and my friend's like, "You're in this class?" And I was like, "Oh snap, you are too." And that's how little I went to class. And then another class, actually, this is like one of my favorite embarrassing stories. So I love sharing it like anytime I go. I was in this religious studies class in first year. And remember, I grew up in a conservative country in India. So I came to university living by myself, going wild, I have alcohol, this, that,
Living the life.
Boom. I thought that was a life, but it wasn't. But like, anyways, that's what I thought. So I go to this it's a first year class. I sit there in class and there's some guy next to me. And I'm like, "Hey man, what do you think of the class?" And my friend nudges me and she's like, "Idiot, that's our professor." Because we had a guest lecturer that day, right? And I never go to class, so I didn't know who the professor, I don't know what he looked like.
Wow.
So anyway, so that really was where my focus was in life, in nothing. So I got kicked out of school and took 2 years off, which was in hindsight, one of the best things that could have happened to me because it really taught me the value of why it's important to care, to work. I go back to school. This is why also I was lucky. They reset my average to 0, but gave me a lot of credit. So I only needed to do 2 more years to graduate. So I graduated summa cum laude because now when I went back, I got A pluses everywhere.
Nice.
From failing out of classes to getting A pluses overnight, just because my mindset shifted. Same individual, just the willingness to do the work. Then I did a master's in financial economics at University of Toronto. That was an interesting story too. When I was applying for grad school, remember I've been kicked out of university. Now I got back into university and now I'm applying to graduate school. So for me at this point, it's like a really great story of redemption. And even grad school was crazy. So I applied to 3 programs. The Masters of Arts in Business Economics at Laurier, the Masters of Arts in Economics at McMaster, which was my undergrad program, and then University of Toronto, which was the Master of Financial Economics program. So I got into the MABE, the Master of Arts of Business Economics, the MABE program at Laurier. They offered me a $17,000 scholarship.
Wow.
Brian, I kid you not, when I read that email, I yelled at the top of my lungs. Here was a kid who got a letter saying, "You cannot go back to school because we don't want you in school." To 5 years later, somebody saying, not even 5 years later, 4 years later, a university saying, "Hey, we'll give you $17,000 to come study."
Wow.
Right? So from not wanting me to paying me money. So when I read that, I just remember I was reading that email driving home.
Yes.
This is before texting and driving was illegal. This is, there weren't that many cell phones, sorry. But anyway, so I'm driving home and I read this email. It was BlackBerry days, right? So let me go back to the BlackBerry era because this is when these were popular. So I get this message and I'm howling in my car. Then I go to my McMaster department And I'm like, Jen, she was the administrator at that time. And I'm like, Jen, I got into Babe. She's like, congratulations, man. She's like, well, you're going to get an offer from Mac too. I'm like, nice. And she's like, what'd you get? I show her my offer. She's like, that's it? I'm like, what do you mean by that's it? McMaster offers me $20,000.
Wow.
So I'm going to the same university that kicked me out now wants to pay me $20,000 to come do school? Yes.
Wow.
And this is where I got sick. And this is a great learning lesson. Thank you for asking this question, actually. It's a great learning lesson. So what I did was, and for all the students listening, you can do this. So I contacted the MABE department and I said, hey guys, I just got a $20,000 scholarship from McMaster. Your scholarship's a little low. Can you do anything? They upped their scholarship.
Wow.
So similar how when you're applying to multiple jobs, and if you get a job offer, you can negotiate a salary.
Wow.
If you get a scholarship, you can negotiate your scholarship. I just learned that from dumb luck. You could do it. Then, as life would have it, then finally I get into the University of Toronto program, Master of Financial Economics. Now, UFT, I was on the wait list at first. Because remember, I got kicked out of school, then I went back. So I had a very colorful history, right? Like I'm coming with a transcript that has F's on it, D's, E's, every color grade you could think of. So a lot of what brought me success was the reference letters from my professors. So I got into UFT as well. UFT gives me no scholarship. I'm talking to my professor, seeking guidance. Where do I want to go? You know, what do I want to do? And he's like, listen, if you come to Mac, you'll be top of your class. They knew who I was. They're like, you're a good student. You'll do well. If you go to Laurier, you'll be top of your class too, right? But if you go to UFT, you'll be in the bottom third. That fucking pissed me off. I'm like, yo, did you just not see me do everything that I did? And you still think I'm going to go somewhere and be the bottom third of my class? So I legitimately picked UFT almost out of spite to be like, I want to prove
them wrong.
Prove wrong. Ended up graduating top 3 in my class, not top 3rd.
Wow.
And I made it a point to go and show my report card to my prof who thought I would show up in the bottom 3rd at every chance I got from UFT. And then, so I graduated from UFT. It was a joint program between the Rotman School of Management and the University of Toronto.
Yeah.
Where we basically did MBA courses from the second year and then economics courses from the PhD, like statistics and stuff like that to really help build up the technical skill set. Then I worked at Scotiabank on Bay Street for a while. Did some investment banking, some credit risk and portfolio management. And then during my reviews when I was at the bank, a couple of my reviews were so good, I cried. I've never had anybody ever praise me like that. Like it's something where like culturally in India, you don't praise your kids. Like you reward them, you love them, but like that overwhelming joy of what they've done is not there. Yeah. Again, and it's not like I'm not salty. It's just culturally, it's just we don't really praise people, right? Like how here everybody shouts out for look at me. In our cultures, we don't say look at me. You know, we're taught to be subdued. So I cried during my reviews. I'm going, I can't believe people are writing this about me, right? Like, because, man, to have, I'm an immigrant, I'm an Indian immigrant. To have North Americans, to have white people, senior white people, old white people write things like this about a kid, where I wasn't like, and we had none of my other peers got ratings like this. I was the only one who got it.
Wow.
Right? So I'm really sitting there going, and I remember when I shed tears, because they were like, what do you think about this? Because remember, this is going into HR files. Is going to be archived for the rest of history, right? So it's very powerful that somebody would document in written these kinds of comments about you. And all my bosses were like, son, we've seen tons of people. This is not coming from a place of niceness. There's no niceness. This is you've earned every single thing of it.
Wow.
And I knew I earned it because the work I would do would be so above and beyond what my peers would do that like they would always be like, how come you're doing this work and we're not? I don't know, man. Ask your boss. My boss said I could do this, right? Like, because again, they just saw it. So I knew that it was deserved and justified, but to have them vocalize that to me really was like a big thing. But then I made a big mistake. I got cocky, and then I quit. And then, but if I'm this good, why don't I go work for myself?
Oh boy.
So yeah, I know, right? There was an oh boy moment, exactly. And then at that point, so I started a food trading company. That's where I moved to the Caribbean. And it was probably 3 of the most funnest years of my life. But man, I lost everything financially. But I learned a lot. And then after that, I came back to Canada, started my marketing company. And then in 2022, Mario and I started working on meal deals, going, okay, you know what, Doc, like we wanted to do something. And then I think our timing was really good too, because with Mario, he's been with tech for so long that he's one of those cool entrepreneurs, which is very hard to explain because he's actually seen the evolution of the internet, which not a lot of people have had. So he's got to see how marketing has evolved. He's got to see how SEO has evolved. He's got to see how Google's algorithm has evolved, right? Because he's been doing it from day one. So that's when we started working on it. And then, here we are today in this podcast studio, recording a beautiful show with you.
Tell us more about your business, Meal Deals.
Yes, sir. So Meal Deals app is a web app that helps people find food and drink specials near them. And in order to do that, we basically built this super easy advertising and marketing platform for restaurants that they can showcase their deals and features to all of their customers in real time. So, when you're going by restaurants, sometimes they'll have a sign, like a sandwich board outside telling you what the specials are or the daily deals or happy hours. Sometimes they post those things in their windows. So we basically took all of that and gave them a way to showcase that and more online in an instant way so that their users, their customers, can find that information easily.
Interesting.
What's happened is nowadays, with how much we use our phones, it's just a natural part of how we engage with the world. So one of the feedbacks that, we would get when we were doing our market research, and again, this is just something that we've seen, that once the pandemic hit and we were forced into lockdown and all these delivery apps and those behaviors became a lot more commonplace.
Yes.
People just started interacting with hospitality in that way. So now it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing, it's just commonplace to either look at a restaurant's menu on your phone or on Uber or on their website or on their social or somewhere. It's just common. Now, a lot of restaurants have not been able to keep up with that digitization. Yeah. Because remember, when you're running a restaurant, your core focus is running the restaurant. Your priority is the food.
Yes.
It's getting the food, and it's a lot of work. People truly underestimate how hard it is to run a restaurant. And secondly, most restaurant owners are specialized in running a restaurant, not in marketing.
That's
right?
true.
Like a marketing professional does not know how to run a restaurant. Similarly, a restaurant professional, it's not that they can't do marketing, but their time is best spent running a restaurant. And given how busy it is to run a restaurant, you don't want to allocate your downtime in private family life and everything else that life has to offer. So the goal for us really was to come up with a platform that would be so easy for restaurants to use and so affordable. So actually we say Meal Deals is safe for restaurants because it's simple, it's affordable, it's fast, and it's easy. And when we were coming up with the SAFE acronym, I actually had to go and do some research myself on the difference between simple and easy, because it's very easy to confuse the two words and use them interchangeably.
Tell me.
So for us, the way we define it, simple is something that is, simple comes from a functional viewpoint. So when you're using something all the time, how simple is it to use? Do you have to go through a lot of process? So for example, when you're setting up your studio, it's not simple. There's a lot of calibration. There's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yes.
Now it's easy for you at this point because you have the knowledge base.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's not simple. But when I look at it the same from my viewpoint, so easy is how easy is something to learn. Because in my view, easy is you need to have that skill set because everything requires a certain skill in order to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So if you could do something, and learn those skills to do the task, that's an easy task.
Yeah.
How long it takes you to do a task, I think will quantify the simplicity of the task. And that also comes down to the experience of the individual. So for us, that was really the hard part. It's like we wanted to make something that you did not need to spend a lot of time learning. It was super easy to use right from day one. It was affordable and it had to be fast, because if I want to advertise, if I'm having a slow day as a restaurant, let's say the weather is coldish today. If I'm having a slow day and I want to advertise something, I don't want that advertisement to show up 2 hours later or 3 hours later or the next day, because I want to try and reap its impacts now. So that's really what we specialized and spent a lot of time. Mario is my partner, who's chief technical officer, chief technology officer, and the developer of this. So he spent a lot of time in making sure that those parts of meal deals are extremely easy to use for the restaurant. And then for the user, what we did was we built this amazing app, but we made it accessible through a website. So this way, you don't have to download anything. We don't track you. There's no login required. There's no sign up required. You don't have to worry about data breaches.
So you guys don't have it on Apple Store or Google Play?
No, because by making it a website, what happens is if I put it on Apple Play, Apple Play or Google Store, somebody's collecting some information on how you're engaging with that interaction.
Is it a policy that you guys don't want that at all for the users?
For the information that we share and what our restaurant partners want to share. If you want to do something online, if you want to search something online,
yes,
why do you feel it necessary to give all your personal information to find information online in today's day and age? That is a viewpoint that Mario and I both feel is not necessary.
Okay.
Information's freely available, right? And now, sadly, what happens is we don't see the best results. We see the results that have the best SEO.
Okay.
That is a critical difference, is that when you do a web search, you're not seeing the best answer. You're seeing the answer that Google or Bing or any other search engine that is showing you that result.
Yes.
Through its crawlers and algorithm.
Yes.
And behavior of other people online have deemed that this is probably the most correct answer. And that's why in the last few years, there's all these concerns about a lot of falsification of news, because people don't know how to qualify if a piece of content that is coming online is actually real or not.
My next question regarding your app is that I like the fact that it's simple for the restaurant owners and also user friendly for the users, right? Is there any customization of, let's say if I want to use your app and I want to select the meals that are available within my area, do you guys have your app in such a way that it produces nearby meal deals?
So you know what? Thank you for asking that, actually. And so that's precisely what Meal Deals does. So you basically open up any browser.
Yes.
You type in mealdeals.app in your browser. And if you can allow your location or enter any address of, say, if you're visiting a friend.
Yes.
You can enter your friend's address, or if you're going to, say, the CNE or downtown Toronto, just enter a landmark where you're visiting.
Yes.
And then it automatically finds that day and that time specials for you. So
wow.
It makes, so we've taken that was really our useful part, because we've thought so too. I'm like, okay, what do we have to, we have to offer the user a really good experience for them to use us. Because if I'm going to come in and offer a free service, if that free service is truly not extremely valuable,
Yeah.
people are not going to see use for it. So it doesn't matter how good a platform we build, there has to be value embedded in it.
Absolutely.
So we made, in order to, because currently what happens is when you look for deals online, you don't know, you see great deals online because restaurants advertise, big players spend millions of dollars advertising on TV, billboards, digital channels. Small businesses now are able to do social media marketing and all other kinds of efforts. So yes, they can get their message across.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily know that, okay, you know what, today is a Wednesday. I'm going out for dinner on a Wednesday. You have to do some search if you wanted to find out what the specific deals were for a Wednesday. Whereas with meal deals, what we did was we streamlined that. Now, one of the things that me and my partner are, Mario and I, are a little bit resistant. And again, I'm stalling here as I say this. I love AI, but I hate throwing AI into everything that we do. But what we've done is we've built this meal deals effectively is like a big data model. And then we've built a very sophisticated search and filter algorithm for the user. So globally, it picks up where you are, then does a complete filter through our database to find out, based on your time zone, day of the week, where you are, where you're searching, what's available that's shown, what's available near you that we could show to you that restaurant in your vicinity wants you to see.
So, quick question: are you guys targeting restaurants all over the world? I thought you guys, the app was meant for restaurant in Toronto.
No, so we're actually in US, Canada, and the United Kingdom right now.
Wow.
So we're in three
massive.
geographies like that. Yes, sir.
Wow. Wow, that's a huge project.
And we're just getting started. So, Brian, this is something where we feel confident that meal deals is truly going to be the way people interact when they're going out for food and drink. And then what we've done with meal deals too is really made it extremely affordable for restaurants to go online.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Our meal deals cost restaurants less than $1 a day. 98.7 cents is what it is. And it's done that way on purpose because when you look at the role of technology, and technology is very critical. So I'm not I'm a co-founder of a technology company, so I'm not against technology. But where Mario and I do agree on is we are a conduit. Yes, we are the product, but we're a conduit. The actual service is delivered by the restaurant, right? Now for the user, I'm not eating the food on your behalf. You're going to eat the food on your behalf.
Yes.
So I feel that, and remember, people who organize marketplaces, whether it's a mall, whether it's the mall developer or eBay or Amazon or Uber, any marketplace that you create. Yes, the marketplace is what facilitates the buyers and the sellers to transact.
Yes.
But at the same time, the marketplace is just that. The richness of the marketplace is not the marketplace. It's the participants in the market that impact it. So if I'm not necessarily, we may be adding value to the organizations. Yeah. But I find it very, very difficult to digest how much of a disproportionate share of revenue is claimed by the marketplace makers. Because there's nothing wrong in claiming value for being able to create value. Yes. But when you claim value that makes the market participants' business model unsustainable.
Interesting. Wow.
You're not building a sustainable marketplace. Right? So one of our biggest challenges was that, okay, these guys, a lot of restaurants need websites. They need to be online. Yes. And then I'll throw in a really scary statistic that not a lot of people know. Less than 20% of restaurants make it past 5 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is freaky, man. Think about it. That's like basically saying that, if you went to your work, 1 in 5 people around your office, or 4 out of 5 people in your office would be fired within 5 years. It's the same way as saying that. Wow. So when you think of it that way, it becomes, oh my God, can you imagine if you're listening to this and you're at work and you look to your left and to your right and going, or in your room of 5 people and you know that in 3 years, 4 of these 5 won't be there. How would you feel? It's a completely different, it flips your understanding of how stressful it is for some of these business owners. Yeah. So, and given how much they risk going into it, they're taking out family loans, and everyone goes into business with hopes and aspirations. Wow. And there's a variety of reasons. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm not saying there's any good or bad. All I'm saying is these are some of the challenges that I don't personally want to be contributing towards. And I know that What technology does is it makes our life easy. So we're going, hey, why don't we do something that is slightly more, and again, this is another there's so much jargon thrown out these days. So like, I don't like using a lot of jargon because then people start bucketing into things. But I'm going, there is a way to show people that, hey, you know what? Capitalism can also be done in an ethical way where like you can actually build something that's utilitarian. Free market forces allow us to enter, right? Capitalism is what created an opportunity for meal deals to be born.
Yes.
Right? But at the same time, we could still be successful without having to gouge and really, really maximize and take every single thing from our partners because they're the ones doing all the work.
Yeah.
So
wow.
So we built meal deals in a way where we want to give everyone access to it. And your success on meal deals, the restaurant success on meal deals is going to be a function of how much work they put into it. Like you can record great podcasts for your audience. Your listeners can enjoy them. But how much value they extract from it, you're not able to control that.
Yes. This leads to my next question. What makes you and your partner went into this business? Is it because of a need that you guys saw? Or is it because of a research? Because you mentioned that you want to do something whereas both parties, the restaurant and the users, because those are the ones who participate in the marketplace. You guys are just the instrument in which you're able to connect the restaurants and the users to participate, whatever it is. Because when I look at the Uber Eats, that's why I stopped ordering food from Uber because it's too expensive. Just the delivery fee. I actually prefer to walk in that restaurant and pay $10 for that same food than to use Uber Eats and pay $20.
Sir, you're preaching to the choir. That's part of the reason why we started this, decided to launch this. Now, Uber is fantastic. Like, you know, people say third-party apps are, everyone talks about the revenues that Uber takes or DoorDash takes, or, you know, well, let's just use third-party apps as a placeholder. Or if I use Uber during this, if I drop Uber is just a placeholder for a wide variety of all these types of businesses.
Yes.
You know, we're in a world where technology has always been an improver of life, whether it's been through the Industrial Revolution, whether we went from the Stone Age to the Iron Age, like we went from industrial to computing, went from railroads, horses to railroads to cars, right? So we're always evolving.
Yes.
Which helps us and makes our world more connected. For restaurants nowadays, you know, their core revenue, given that hospitality establishments have restaurants and things, and this also goes back to how we are just as a civilization. We're a community-driven, like human beings are community creatures.
Yeah.
Right? So it's natural for us to want to go out, celebrate milestones, family events, go out to restaurants, celebrate things like that. It's just built in.
Yes.
Every culture in the world has holidays, religions. You know, the frequency with which we may go out to a restaurant may vary based on the financial levels and stabilities people have, but it's completely normal in every culture, from even cultures that don't have languages all the way to the most sophisticated cultures to have celebrations and events to do that. Hospitality establishments provide a very good setting for that.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, what happened with the pandemic was, like, and let's go back, like, say, pre-pandemic, right? We're getting on our phones, apps are coming out. So yes, you know what, giving restaurants a way so that they can order online stuff is huge. Because if you think about it, pre-delivery apps, the only restaurants that really, in North America anyways, the only restaurants that did delivery were pizza shops or other businesses that had a high margin.
Yes. Big businesses for sure, yeah.
Now, as I mentioned earlier during our, before we started recording, I was born in India. In Mumbai, there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's common for every restaurant to hire a delivery driver. Let's face it, everybody loves the convenience of having food delivered to their house.
Yes.
If money was not an objective, everybody would use that convenience some days. Some days we love to go out and walk, but there's some days where I just want to get something, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So in a lot of, let's say, the developing part of the world, it's common for the restaurant owner to hire somebody whose sole responsibility is to do local deliveries for that restaurant. Because the salaries, the population densities, economics allow you to do that.
Yeah.
In North America, while people would like to have delivery from restaurants, it's just not, the frequency is not high enough for it to be economically feasible to have a full-time delivery driver on your roster. Because remember, if you hire somebody, they have to be able to sustain and support their family and lifestyles through those earnings as well.
Yeah.
So because we don't have that, what tech does is it basically acts as an aggregator. So now one person can help deliver for 10 restaurants. So now if a restaurant is saying, hey, I don't want to pay you a full-time salary to sit here because I don't know if I'm going to have 10 deliveries today or 5 deliveries. But every time there's a delivery, I will give you something.
Yeah.
Now, this incumbent, this driver, or this restaurant, they have very good incentive of 10 of them to be like, hey, how about 10 of us partner together, hire one guy, give him a percentage of every time we sell, because you know that in aggregate, we will be having orders across the 10, 15 restaurants. And then this gentleman will be able to make enough of our living where it makes sense for him to do the deliveries. So that model people have tried, but there has been varying degrees of success, right? And it wasn't universally adopted, because that's another part too, right? With a marketplace, a big challenge with the marketplace is what came first, the chicken or the egg? In order for people to go to a market, there has to be stores, there has to be vendors.
Yeah.
But for the vendors to be there, they must feel confident that shoppers and buyers come on there.
Yeah.
So there's always that who wants to go first kind of deal, or like, okay, who's willing to take the risks first or see the opportunity first. That's where, you know, when they have the first mover advantage, I think all of first mover advantages is people's abilities to see potential in something.
Yeah.
And then moving on before the rest of the people are like, hey, this is really good. At which point, most of the economic value has already been extracted. At that point, now you're just a regular process. So pandemic comes along, and now we can't dine in at restaurants anymore.
Yeah.
So restaurants really overnight lose all their business. Literally, it's very scary. Extremely,
It is.
Very, very sad. And like, I started working with restaurants when I was 16 years old. So I do have 25 years of experience working with restaurants, restaurant owners. I've done everything. I have friends who own restaurants. So I understand this industry very well.
Awesome. Yeah.
So everything disappears overnight when the pandemic hits. Luckily, these guys, at that point, you know, these delivery apps come out and help sustain and carry forward their revenues. Now, in the onset, these restaurants have no problems paying the 20, 30% fees, because remember, technology is very expensive. A lot of people don't understand that when something works well, it is so difficult to make it work that well.
Wow.
You know this, when you're setting up your, like we're having a conversation here. Mic check, 1, 2, sound is good, light is good. I know firsthand, because I saw this, how long it took you to calibrate everything to make sure that every single light was set at the right tone so that you and I are presenting. It's a lot of work that goes into that we don't see.
Yeah.
Right? The user won't see, they'll just see a great show, but they won't see all the effort that you have to put in to make this show happen. Same with technology, right? So initially when they came on, the shock of losing all revenue to being able to do some sales was very welcoming. Plus for the people, from not being able to go out to at least being able to get something from your favorite restaurant felt nice. So in the beginning of the pandemic, it was well loved because it actually helped.
Yeah.
But then what happened is the percentages that these guys charge makes it extremely difficult for restaurants to be economically viable, especially given how high the rents are.
Wow.
So what happens with the restaurant landscape in metropolitan cities is that rent is so high that traditionally rent would be, you know, most restaurants, again, like classically in North America, restaurants would have this model where they would say, you know, a third of the revenues are put towards your rent, your staff, your operational costs.
Yeah.
A third of the revenue goes towards the cost of food. and a third of the revenue is the profits which the restaurant owners make. That ratio of a third and third and third, which was, again, established a long time ago. So obviously that is expected to evolve as technology evolves. But it's actually regressed. That profitability chunk of a third has now gone down. So what that does is it makes the restaurant owner a lot more susceptible to any shocks or risks in the system. That before they would have a buffer in profitability that they could absorb a slow day or have a slow month. But now, because that margin is so thin, any form of negative movement literally starts hitting into your bank account right away.
Wow.
And so given how high the rent is and such a high commission, that 33%, which was initially allocated towards rent and operational costs, is now more than half. Right? So when you have the rent fee, I think the metropolitan rental prices really make... Because when you go to a restaurant and you see a plate of food for $15, my friend, out of that $15, $7 of that plate of food or $6 is for rent and operation.
Wow.
If rent was half, that same plate of food for you would be $10 or $12 or $13. But again, that's a whole different conversation. And I'm not here to comment on whether the rent is right number or wrong number. I'm just stating that factually, because of what we're seeing, is what we're at. So fast forward a couple of years on, we've moved on, economy's back to normal. People are still using delivery apps. And then restaurants started doing these things where in the beginning, they really liked the delivery apps because it helped fill the void when they didn't have sales. What happened after was they realized, hey, if I have to pay 30% to this company, if I sell a plate of food for $20 when I walk in, let's go $10 for sake of simplicity, or $100 because it makes percentages much easier, right? Let's say if my bill at the restaurant is $100 and you walk in, you give me $100. If I order on Uber, I only get 70, right? If you order on Uber, you still pay Uber 100. Let's assume that you don't pay Uber more. Let's assume you pay Uber 100.
Yes.
The restaurant only gets 70.
Interesting.
But if you go directly to the restaurant, they get the full 100. You've paid the full $100 either ways. But the restaurant is getting a completely different number.
I didn't even know that. Wow, that's interesting. Wow.
So then they started going, hey, why am I only getting 70? So then what they started doing is they charge you 130 on Uber. So if you go into them, they charge you 100. So they get the 100. If you order from Uber, they charge you 130. And then Uber pays them 95. So they're okay with it.
Wow.
So these third-party apps are not bad.
Yes.
Why? Because they're a way of incremental revenue. Right? There's some days where you've had a good day, business is good. Like, listen, we all feel good some days and we all feel miserable some days. I've given money to the homeless some days, and I've looked at homeless some other days and said, I'm not giving you money. I know you're just asking hundreds of people. And the same person who I think asks hundreds of people, some days if I feel really good or if I had a good day, I'll contribute to whatever it is. So we're normal. So let's say if as a user, someday I know that the restaurant is going to charge me $100, but I don't want to get into my car. I don't want to drive. Maybe it's raining. Maybe it's late. Maybe I'm not able to drive. Maybe I don't have a car. Make up any reason you want.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what reason is. But you're like, you know what? I don't mind paying 130 to Uber to get the same food. The restaurant is okay. Right? So in that sense, third party and technology is excellent for restaurants because it's incremental revenue. It's added sales. But when it becomes a core part of your sales, when most of your sales come from those apps, that's when restaurants start running into some business model struggles.
Interesting. Wow.
And then as a user, man, I don't know about you, but it's not about the money. Nobody likes taking advantage of.
Yeah.
So if I know that, company, and I'm not saying why company charges. Why they charge is not what we're questioning. We're just saying this is what they do. So if I know that if I go to the restaurant and I walk to the restaurant and I pay them whatever, and if I order on a third-party application, I have to pay a little bit more, which the restaurant controls. By the way, the third-party applications do not set the price. All of those pricing that you see on there is controlled by the restaurants.
Okay.
Now, the restaurants understand that sometimes they may have to charge a little bit more so that they can maintain the same level of profitability that they anticipated in their business. And the convenience which the user is trying to get, you pay for a little bit of that convenience factor of, hey, I would like to get delivery.
Yes.
But as a user, and I've seen this too, just given again, because we're impacted by the rent as well. Just as the restaurant owner has to pay the restaurant rent, we have to pay apartment rents.
Yes.
We know how expensive rent is in big cities relative to our salaries.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes to the point where people have roommates because they cannot afford to live independently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even as a user, if I know that I can get a plate of food for $10 by walking into a restaurant versus paying $15 after paying all the... Why I pay $15 doesn't matter, but at the end of the day, I have to pay more to get the same amount of food. There may be a willingness for me to consider, hey, let me go into the restaurant. That's fine. Now, this is something which is even more important to me. The money part is one thing, because money is very relative, it's subjective. As I said, some markets like it, right? It's like there's restaurants where a dinner costs $200 a person, and there's fast food places, or not even fast food, or there's great places that sell combos and meals for $6.99. They do the same thing. They provide nourishment and energy, but people have a willingness to pay different amounts. So that's never going to go away.
Yes.
Right? But I look at it from my experience. Is my food better when a chef cooks something delicious in the kitchen, presents it beautifully on a plate, and it comes to my table in 3 minutes? Or if that chef prepares something beautiful, puts it in a box,
packages,
that box is then taken by somebody else. Who knows how that box is shaken and moved along the way when it makes to your door? You're trying to tell me you want to eat French fries that are 30 minutes cold, or if you want to eat chicken wings that are 30 minutes cold. So for me, the big thing is that the taste completely changes once a restaurant's food is older.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So let's assume the money aside. Money, because it's a convenience it's a convenience field, right? So you cannot put a value on convenience.
Yeah.
Right? Why people take Uber versus take the TTC? Convenience,
yeah.
Right? And that's perfectly fine. But the quality is such a deterioration in the quality. I used to work at a restaurant as a server when I was in university. And I remember when we'd walk to our tables, our chef would make sure that don't tip the plate because he doesn't want the sauce dripping to the side. Right? Like these chefs take a lot of effort in making the plate beautiful.
Yes. It's an art.
You cannot maintain that. When it gets put into a delivery guy.
Just a box and then a delivery guy.
They fall. And listen, there's nothing wrong. It's okay. It's to be expected. Pizza now travels well. Given the nature of it is, they've perfected the packaging, all of that. Right? So for me, certain foods just don't travel well in that sense. And then also, one other thing about how these operate versus why we also started meal deals is the payment processing. So what happens with third-party apps often, Brahim, is that the customer data is all a part of the marketplace.
Yeah.
So you order on Uber or DoorDash or Skip or Ritual or Meal Deals. Meal Deals actually we don't have ordering because for this reason. You're paying money to Uber.
Yes.
Your customer information is collected by Uber or DoorDash or Skip. Then they push the order to the restaurant, you get the order, and then they pay the restaurant out. They pay them out instantly, so it's not like they hold their money. So they get the payment.
Yeah.
But there's that rerouting of funds where it's not going from your pocket to the restaurant's pocket, but it's going to Uber's pocket first, and then Uber pays it out to the restaurant. So right there's some efficiency loss. Whatever way, right? Somebody has to pay to process all those additional payments. And secondly, what happens is, if I make a complaint that the food is not good, Uber just doesn't pay the restaurant. So every restaurant, we don't hear about this as the end user, but when you complain to Uber about the food not being good, And if they don't charge you, that means the restaurant doesn't get paid. So now they've actually lost money because they sent you food that cost them ingredients and time and effort to make and packaging that they're not going to receive money for. So with meal deals, we really wanted it to, then again, as I said, like third-party apps are not bad.
Yeah, there's a place for them.
They have a place for them. But they offer challenges that both the user and the restaurant experience. We, in terms of higher prices and a slightly subpar food quality, in my view, highly subpar food quality when it's delivered. Nacho. Do you want to get nachos to go? Can you imagine eating soggy nachos? Right? Like, I would want to eat soggy nachos, right? But, okay, it's so...
Convenience.
Exactly. But like, so you have that like thing. So meal deals, what we do is by showing you what's there and by showing you what's close to you, we default load things that are within like a 10-minute walking radius of you. Because why, if I'm going to show you a deal that's 40 minutes away, it doesn't make sense. It's not relevant.
I mean, that's why I asked you about how far, how near the deals are, because that's key. You're talking about quality, you're talking about convenience. But as much as we want convenience, quality also matters. I don't want to get my food in 40 minutes and I'm hungry. If that food comes in 40 minutes, I have to warm my food. I don't have time to warm my food.
And it's not going to taste as good. If you were going to warm up food and make your own food, why not just cook at home?
Yeah.
The whole point of ordering out is the convenience. And if that convenience is taken away in any way, shape, or form, then it kind of defeats. Now, if you're working in an office, I get it. But so we show people deals close to them, and then restaurants can embed their Uber Eats links. They can add their DoorDash links, because our goal is for them to promote themselves in whatever way they feel is best for them.
Yeah.
And to make it easy for our users. So let's say if you go on meal deals, and we're in Toronto, we're recording in Toronto. I mean, your audience is obviously worldwide, but given that we're recording in Toronto, we have really cold winters here.
Yeah.
So if it's a really cold day and I don't want to go out, or if it's a snowstorm and I'm like, I don't want to go out today. But if I know that, hey, there's a great deal at this restaurant, and you know what? They offer Uber too. Let me just order it on Uber. I've given the user access to some valuable information. The restaurant is going to get some benefit, even though, and it's their discretion. They can choose whether or not they want to do it. So we've made it completely open source in that essence, in that our goal is your success. However you define that success, that's individual to you. And our job is to make sure that we support you in how can we help you get to your success, however you define that.
Wow. Really, thank you so much. Because I like the fact that you explain to the audience how you have worked in the restaurant industry, hospitality for so long, so you really understand your clients, which is the restaurants owners, and you also understand the users as well, because I'm pretty sure you like to eat outside, right? So share with us the process it takes, because it really takes a man that has vision, a man who has his own business, who to understand their client, because most times we want to start our own business, we don't understand our clients, and we think that we know our clients. But in your case, what I'm getting from you is that the reason why I am seeking the interest of the restaurant owners and also the users, because I have worked in that industry before, and I know their struggle, and I know their challenges, and I know the difficulties. So how would you explain this to an entrepreneur starting the process to consider their clients, not just to make money off them, but also to understand their struggles and see how best they can minimize their struggles while you're making profits?
That's such a great question. Oh, and so well phrased too. That's very deep. I think, one of the things I didn't share in up until now was that before Mario and I founded Meal Deals, him and I were partners in a marketing company.
Wow. Okay.
So we ran this marketing company called Branding and Promo, where we offered digital marketing, collateral marketing. Basically, it was a 360 marketing company. We had a lot of clients in the restaurant and hospitality and healthcare. Actually, we did a lot of healthcare clients in the US, and lots of large businesses and hospitality clients in Canada as well. So we did bring some marketing know-how and experience in that we've watched digital advertising evolve. Mario has been, I think he's so good at what he does. And I'm honestly so lucky that like I tell him all the time to his face. I'm like, man, one of the greatest gifts God's given me is connecting me with you. Like, truly, it's
a
like
good partner, yeah.
It's a really wonderful blessing to have someone like that come into your life, right?
Just a quick question. Do you guys, your skill set complement each other?
We're 180, completely different. I'm a night owl. He's a morning bird. I'm outgoing and loud and rambunctious. He's quiet.
Wow.
I'm emotional, energetic, vulgar. He's nice and polite and the softest spoken man. But that's why we have a very healthy respect for our abilities. So we trust each other to do, and then we both know that there's this, our values align in that neither of us are going to, our goal is not to extract money from the customer. Our goal is to deliver value to the customer. We both have, part of what gives us a good working relationship is we've always said we only win when the customer wins.
That's a good mindset, yeah.
Because, we're in a kind of business where we need to collect monies from the customer on an ongoing basis. If I'm going to collect money from you regularly, one of the critical things that I need to be focusing on is making sure you stay alive.
For sure,
The hardest part of any business is the sale.
Yeah.
A lot of people are incredibly amazing at getting the sale, but then they end up losing the client after. For me, I'm going, no, I don't want to do that. I want to retain my client. I remember I've had people telling me, hey, it's okay to have 30, 40% churn, 30 to 40% turnover and how many clients stay with you. And I'm going, what kind of service are you providing that 30 to 40% of the people decide to leave you? I find that I'm going, how bad is my service that this many people want to leave me? That means either my service is no good, which I'm almost certain is not. B, I'm lying to them as to what I'm going to give them. When I say I'm lying to them, I mean our organization is making false promises, right?
Yeah,
so from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
And both of these are situations that should not be happening. So in my view, our goal is, hey, why don't we build a business where clients don't ever want to leave us? They just pay us automatically because they're benefiting.
Yep.
And then they send us referrals. So you know how many referrals and leads I get? And then for me to send a warm lead to somebody is so much easier. I've had clients sometimes, and I'll do sales calls too. I'll jump on, and I've had clients be like, oh, do you have a reference? So I'm like, who do I use for a reference? I'll be like, sir, didn't one of my clients tell you to call me? And now you want a reference from me? And then we chuckle about it going, you're calling me because of a reference. So I find going back to your question, about what's important. If you can figure out a way where you need to demonstrate an understanding of your client's challenges and how that marketplace works.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that time is the only way to do it, but you have to put in effort into developing your understanding of how it works. That requires listening, countless hours of conversation, even till today. The number of conversations I have with all our clients, we go follow up with them, see them regularly. And we all share same problems. So it's amazing how much transfer there is of knowledge, because a customer will share something with me and then I'll be talking to somebody else and they'll have a similar problem. And then we're able to come up and be like, hey, what about this kind of tweak?
Yeah.
But that requires a good understanding of your business, why you're doing it. And as I said, money is not our goal. Money comes when you're good, because people will just think. And then if you do it for the money, eventually what will happen is there's always going to be somebody richer, something newer, something bigger. That's not the reason you're going to do it. It's for the process. If you're doing it for accomplishing something that you want to give to people or help people in a certain way, it'll motivate you to go through because you're going to struggle and suffer either way. It's inevitable.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you're suffering for, hey, you know what? This is something that I believe helps people. Your suffering is not suffering. It becomes a cause. Whereas when you're doing it for consumption, then you start becoming a little bit more, again, personally for how I am. Everybody's wired individually, so everything I'm saying here is more so a reflection of how I am at my core and what ticks me, what drives me.
What drives you, yeah.
So we really want to make sure that you're doing things for the right reason, have an understanding, and then just care. Because you cannot fake care. Because when you truly care about people, they can feel that energy. And remember, not everyone is going to like you. It's completely normal. I have people that call us frauds. And then I have people that hug us and sign up right away and then give us food and drink. You know, one of the coolest parts of my job is I get fed and drank by all the owners. It's really lovely. I tell all our sales teams, I'm like, the best part of working for meal deals is you're going to be eating well. Because the restaurant owners, they're happy to have us. Like, if we're doing something nice for them, they feel the energy. They know we're here to help them.
They're
surrounded by food. You know, they're like, you know how every day I go to work, every single one of my clients I walk into is like, would you like something to eat? And I'm always like, you guys are so kind. Because again, I'm in the work mode, so I don't want to eat. Because if I eat, then I'm going to want to take a nap. So I don't want to eat for that reason. But that's when you know it's that you're doing things with care. Because you've now taken out the transaction. The goal is still professionalism and delivering. So all of this assumes that you're delivering your services and executing at a high level. But if you execute with an understanding of helping them, what challenges they have, why you're doing it, I find it, for us anyways, it really transformed how we were doing business. And I said this earlier too when I talked about just the way the business model is. I want things to be sustainable, right? When you, and whether it's environmental crises or anything, the whole reason all these things come up is because they're not sustainable. Because we know that when you don't share equally, or you don't, and equally is like not the best word to use, because I'm not saying you take a pie and you cut it into equal parts. But if one party tries to greedily take an extremely large share of that pie, it collapses the system. Because then everybody wants to cheat, everybody wants to do things, right? So you want to maintain that integrity of the system.
Wow. So this leads me to a quotation by Zig Ziglar. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, the greatest salesman ever.
Yes. He said that...
he used to write, actually for his audience, just because you could put it in there, one of his greatest things for sales success was, and this was, he used to sell cars in Detroit back in the day. And one of Zig Ziglar's greatest success thing was, and nobody else did this back in the day, he would write handwritten birthday cards and thank you cards to every person who bought a car from him.
Wow.
So when somebody bought a car from Ziggy, he wrote down every family member's name and birthdays, and on their anniversary day, he would send them a card. He was the only sales rep in North America for cars who was doing that. Just so you know, sorry, just to show you the value of the personal touch.
Wow.
And you think, and he did that after selling the car.
Wow.
You already paid him. So see what I talk about? Like, the close is easy. It's what do you do after the close?
Yes.
So he closed the car. He's already made the money.
Yeah.
And still and you know, if you buy a car, you're not buying a new car for 5 years.
Yes.
You still send out 20 cards. So at the end of the 5 years, when the person wants a new car, guess who they're going to?
It's you for sure.
But sorry to interject.
Wow. No, because this is what I tell entrepreneurs and business owners, or anyone that wants to start their own business. Business has the following piece. You have the purpose, the reason why you're going into business, and then you have the process, and then you have the people, and then you have the product, and then you have the profit.
The 5 P's.
Yes, you have purpose, process, people, product, and profit. Zig Ziglar said that if you want to get what you want, give people what they want. As a business owner, if you want to make that profit, give your customers what they want. There's one thing to attract customers, but there's another thing to retain them. You mentioned that you just don't want to just start a business. You don't want to just scale a business. You want to sustain something. And then when you leave this world, you want a succession of that business. That is why we see the greatest business that are still, like for example, Apple, Steve Jobs is gone.
Long time.
But I realized that most businesses, okay, I'm just there for the money, but I'm not there for the impact. You mentioned, okay, there are people, we live in a social media world where most of people who are online, they're there for consumption. They're not creators. and they're not contributors. And the people who are benefiting from the social media market are people who are creators. And I see life as these three areas. Most people tend to consume. You mentioned that, okay, if you are as an entrepreneur, you're going into business just to make that 1 million and then sell your business, you're there just to consume. But if you're going there because you have a cause, you see challenges affecting restaurants. Coming up with meal deals not only help restaurants, but it also helps the users, because we're in a difficult time where people are looking for meals.
It's true. Times are expensive. Absolutely, sir.
So I tend to focus on people, because if you want to get what you want, always give people what they want. And there's another person that says, I think it was JFK, that says, my fellow Americans, don't ask what American can do for you, but ask what you can do for America.
Bingo.
Most times we tend to ask what people can do for us. We should ask what we can do for others. And success is not the attainment, but you being a person of value. The marketplace is not going to give you something for nothing. You have to add value in the marketplace. And value is not just money. Value is also care. Things that are intangible, things that are not monetary. I know I'm saying a lot, but I'm just putting everything to you just to focus on not just transactions, focus on relationship. With your employers, employees, and the customers, your stakeholders.
Part of the reason I like, doing podcasts is you guys have such a wonderful knowledge base, because you have the privilege of meeting countless people like myself, where I can only imagine how much the richness of the conversations you get to have on a daily basis.
Absolutely,
and how that evolves your understanding. So our restaurants, obviously, they love us. But talking about repeat customers, right? For the users, Meal Deals we launched April 1st of this year officially.
Congrats.
Thank you. We're 5 months old. Our traffic for August was 217,000 visitors to our site in 5 months without any investors.
Wow.
With an 80% repeat user rate.
Wow.
I did not expect, our goal was to have an 80% repeat user rate in the long run, because that would give us a lot of joy.
Yes.
But Mario and I were so blown away to see such a high repeat user rate. Because like you said, when you build something good, people will come back.
Yes.
Right? There's this one interesting sort of analogy, right? And when you're recording podcasts, when I'm a guest on a show, when I listen to a show, one of the things I try to be mindful of is trying to get the context or the gist of the message, or the essence of what it is that is being shared. Because what I'm sharing with you here is stories surrounding personal experiences. We're also individual, that the lessons from my stories relate to your life, but you have to look at what lesson it is that I'm imparting, right? That is something where once you can develop that view, that lens of how to view knowledge to apply to your own being, it transforms the way information just flows into you. Because now you're not just looking at it as, if this, then that. You understand why.
Yes.
And there's no mandate or necessity to understand the why. It just happens, right? Again, some people are naturally curious. I suck at video games. I suck at sports. I don't like watching TV. There's a lot of things that I'm awful at that people love doing. You know? So let's put that out there too, right? Because I want people to know that I'm not some model or superstar or somebody who won a lottery. No, I have certain things that are really near and dear to me. Yeah. And those are things that I am lucky enough to have very good focus on generating my life. So most days tend to be good. There's a lot of things I don't do in my life. I don't go out. I don't have a social setting. I don't have a lot of those things. And it's okay. It's not something that I'm sad about, but I'm just letting people know that there's always trade-offs. So there's so many people who have beautiful families, who have beautiful social lives that I don't have the luxury of. So there's no right or wrong. Is my life better? Is their life better? I don't know. As long as you feel happy and fulfilled, and you're doing things and you think you're doing things which is a little bit bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
In my view, I think that's a good way generally to approach most waking moments, because then you'll do something productive and constructive when you think outside of yourself. Right? But going back to like, you know, the whole reason I went on this little like rant was you talked about ask not what America could do for you, but ask what you could do for America. When can you withdraw from a bank? After you deposit. If your bank account doesn't have money, can you withdraw money from the bank?
No.
You're going to go into overdraft, right?
Yeah.
Or let's assume you didn't have overdraft, so you need to deposit. So if in life too, if you want to get something from someone, learn to keep giving to them and give to them without expectation. Because when you truly do things without expectation, eventually people recognize that, hey, and we all use each other in life.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. We're using each other.
Yeah.
Where I kind of like break this down is that if using, because we both productively can create some form of value.
Yeah.
Now, if I feel that we're not able to create value together, quote unquote, you have no use for me. I don't have to spend time with you because time is finite. It's limited. It's the opportunity cost of doing something else.
Yeah.
Us being together at this podcast today, there's a million things that you could be doing on this beautiful day that you're not doing. The same way.
Absolutely.
But we choose to do this. That doesn't mean you have to wish bad on the person. Right? So that's another thing too. So oftentimes, because again, people would be like, oh, you're using people. I'm like, yeah, we're not using. I'm on a mission to do something. I have a mission. I want to do it. And if you're on the way of the mission, beautiful. Let's see if we can enhance the mission where we can both add value to it. And if we feel that our missions are not aligned or we're not able to be congruent in adding value to a platform, it's okay. You have a beautiful day. You know, we're still the same human being. We still have the same divine life form in us. I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
And hopefully, and then me 15 years ago versus me today, two different individuals. So we also evolve consistently.
Yeah.
Where we don't know what we're going to be at in the future.
It's like when you reach out to a restaurant and they reject your service, not because they don't like you. It could be maybe they don't understand your service, or maybe they're not ready at that time. Or not everybody can be a customer, but they can be a referral to you. But depending on how you treat them, and if somebody now, if a question comes up, oh, I'm looking for a service where I can find local deals in town. And if that customer had an experience with your company, it didn't like it, they can't really refer your company. That is why you have to treat every person that comes to your storefront or your app or your website respectfully, because they might not be your client right away. They might know somebody who could be, because they know exactly what you're doing and they don't want your service for now. But if they come across somebody who tell, okay, I need a meal deal. I came across this app. Check them out. Depending on how you treat them will determine if they can refer somebody as your potential client. So in essence, what you're trying to say is that, yes, human relationship is all about, I don't use the word use, I use the word serve. We're here to serve each other.
Yes.
We are interdependent. There are 3 stages in life. And I'm a man of faith. Only God is independent. Only God is independent. We are dependent when we are children on our parents. As we get older, we are independent, but we're also interdependent. So I can use the word interdependent when we're older. When we're young, we are dependent, but we are not independent. No human being is independent. Only God is. But we are interdependent, right? Customers are interdependent to the manufacturers. We as citizens, we are interdependent with the government. Same with the government as well.
We pay taxes to them. So they need us. Yes.
So life is all about interdependency. That's why it's called interaction, interpersonal skills.
That's beautiful. That was so lovely. Thank you for sharing that, because I practice a lot of big part of what helped me change a lot of my being was, and again, this is just something that helped me, was really falling into love with the practice of yoga. And I'm not just talking about yoga in terms of the poses and the exercise, although the exercise part is
Meditation?
fantastic. Just the whole element of it.
Okay.
And what yoga does is exactly yoga is oneness. We're united. So that statement you made about we're all interdependent, that's exactly what yoga captures, but just in a different way. And it's true, when you start viewing things, and yes, you know what, like my choice of words there where like we use each other was a little bit more corporate and but no, the essence of the way you actually rephrase that is truly the way it is, that we actually all are interdependent. Mario and I need each other. We talk all the time. I tell him, I'm like, Doc, I call him Doc. He's just so smart. I'm like, Doc, I'm so lucky. I'm like, man, you've built such a great product. And he's like, Kunal, the product is great, but if we didn't have the data on there that you didn't put on there, if you didn't have the sales on there that you go out there and get, the product has no value. So that's him being like, no, you're not just dependent on me, I'm dependent on you as well. So that interdependency, even in our business relationship, is two-way, where like we give each other so much kudos. And it's lovely that you articulate that. And I will hope that all your listeners and viewers fully appreciate that when you can find people where your values match up, where some of your short and long-term desires or how you want to do things match up. And if you could learn to have a healthy respect and trust on each other's abilities, some magic can be done.
Wow. When you have the right people, right things can be done. But then who betray you if you have the wrong person as a business partner?
You are learning. You know, I've had people happen like that. You think all of this was just, hey, I'm not one of those lucky people who woke up one day and then just had this gift of knowledge pour into them. No, this is trial and error. This is thing. There's a lot of great lucky people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there isn't. But overwhelmingly, a large majority of people who make it out there make it through the grind. Because there's something about that pressure that forces you. And, you know, before we started recording, we were just having such a wonderful conversation before we started recording the show. And we talked about this earlier a little bit. It was off the record. What really makes a person is failures. It's not the wins. Because what failure teaches you is it teaches you humility. It teaches you what not to do. It teaches you how you feel when you're not down. And, you know, for how awful I felt a lot of times in my life, I don't want other people to feel like that, man. Because I know how dead I've felt, how trapped, unhelpless. Luckily, I've been surrounded by a system that allows me to stand up again.
Interesting, yeah.
Not everyone has this good fortune, brother. If I would not have, given the situations and things I've done in my life, if I didn't have the kind of support systems that I have in place, maybe I wouldn't be here. Who knows? Now we can flip that around and say, maybe if I didn't have the support systems I didn't have in place, I would not have taken some of the decisions I took. That's a corollary to that statement. So I'm never angry at myself. I'm not hating at myself. I'm just cognizant of trying to evaluate things from all perspectives to enhance my understanding of future interactions.
Wow. This leads me to, we have spent so much time. Just two last questions, because I love when people share 3 transferable skills. The reason why I use the word 3 transferable skills that not only I can use in different industry, but I can also use in every aspect of my life, meaning that I can use in my financial life, I can use in my professional life. So what are your 3 top transferable skills? Because I know you have a lot, but just the 3 main ones that you can share with the audience that they can apply in their business life, their work life, their relational life, anything that you think is so valuable to you.
Okay, so you know what? In terms of skills, like I'm very lucky in terms of as I said, like I've had the good privilege of being put in some certain settings. You know, the family I was born into, the opportunities I was given. I had some good, like I was very lucky. You know, I have a master's in financial economics. I speak 5 languages. I've been around the world.
Wow.
So I'm not going to comment so much on the technical skills, because technical skills is something I took to develop. But, you know, as far as 3 general skills that I think are like absolutely critical. I would say the first one is don't assume anything.
Okay.
And up until today, I still make assumptions. And it's amazing how regularly my assumptions are proven false. So I prove to myself till today consistently that when I assume, I'm wrong. Because what assumptions do is, I think it stops you from wanting to learn. Because when you don't assume something, there's a natural curiosity to understand why it is rather than coming up with an explanation for yourself. So I find that don't assume and continue learning, I'd put them in the same bucket, but I would definitely say that's like a really big transferable skill to have. Second one I would say is resilience. You know, just getting up and doing it. And again, like, you know, words like resilience and stuff, as I said, like, given how much content is out there, there's a lot of bucketing, a lot of jargon, a lot of words that get thrown out. And quite frankly, what my only problem with those words is the words in themselves are beautiful because they're very complete. They're a layer of degree deeper in their understanding of what that word means. But unfortunately, what happens is people tend to take those words out of context and then start using them as things. So that's why, like, resiliency, what I mean by resiliency is just keep doing it, man. Doesn't matter whether you do what you love or what you hate. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. You're going to have good moments and you're going to have bad moments. Right? Sales teaches you something where I could walk out of a restaurant where I could have been abused. Or I could have walked out of a restaurant where I got a sale. And in the next 20 seconds, when I go into the new restaurant, that past transaction cannot be brought into it. Because this new person does not know me. I don't know them.
Yeah.
How am I going to bring any of my energies from my previous interactions into that new interaction?
Yeah.
Right? So keep pushing. It's never easy. You never hear about all the struggles people face. They only share about some of their challenges and successes and consumption. And then I think the third most important skill, and this is something that, again, I learned from, like, you know, alluded to yoga, was really care about your mind and body. I'm 41 now, and up until I was about 31, 32, I never focused on physical well-being. Culturally, as I mentioned earlier to some of our listeners, I never played any sports. You know, again, just in India, it's commonplace to spend emphasis on education, to really try to be a good student, not so much about going out there and playing games. Because when I grew up, athletes didn't have financial potential like they do now. So parents never thought that, you know, and for your audience who's listening to us versus seeing us in life, I'm 6'4", 200 pounds. So I'm a physical specimen as far as like genetic is. It's just that gift was never evolved. Yeah. Because that's not an area of focus that my parents considered valuable. So movement was never a big part of my life. But I really think that people should be extremely mindful of their physical health and mental health. And when I say physical and mental health, I don't mean so much from like, hey, get therapy or this or that. But just generally, because when your body works, when your mind works, your ability to do things is really amplified. Whether it's learning, helping people, doing your job, all of that gets magnified multiple-fold when you're healthy. So those would be my three biggest general things that I think I would like to share that people can build on.
Well, just to summarize that, the first one is don't ever assume. I can combine that with continuous learning, always seek to learn, which is really a good attitude because, again, in life, age does not mean you're matured. Age does not mean you're wise. You know what I mean? Because life is so much mysterious that you and I, we don't know it all. Sometimes my mentor will always say, Brahim, learn, unlearn, relearn. Keep that in mind. Learn, unlearn, relearn. Things are outdated. You have to upgrade, you know? So thanks for sharing that. And then the other transferable skill that you mentioned is resilience. That's really a strong word, especially for entrepreneurs. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have days where you're not going to get no customers, you know. I have been doing podcasts since 2015. And I don't really see that much success in this. Well, I don't see monetary success. But the success that I see is people giving reviews saying that that guest really opened my eye into this. The success might not be monetary for now, but sometimes we overlook other things. That's why I keep saying it's all about people, because the people are the reasons why you're doing what you're doing. What's making me doing? I would have given up on this podcast. I would have given up on Aspara, because that's why I went back to work. You understand? As much as I want to follow my passion, but I was broke. I was in need.
Well, you're realistic. You have to pay
Yes,
bills.
we have
You
to
can't
pay
tell your
bills.
landlord, "Hey, man, I got this great episode. If you heard it 3 times, can you get some good skill out of it? Can you use that for rent payment?" It would be wonderful if we could do that. But unfortunately, the way our society is constructed right now, for now, maybe in the future we go back, with technology. It'd be funny if we came up with a digital bartering app. If we could come up with an app where people can digitally barter rent and stuff. But sorry, it's just funny.
No, you're right. I'm like, nah, man, I can't. But when you're doing something for people and they're giving you reviews, just like when a restaurant owner was saying, "You know what, thank you, I'm getting so much clients, getting all these meal deals, thank you so much. You have changed your lives." And that makes you that what you're doing is not in vain. That your company, your product, your service is valuable. People need it. So that's why I'm like, okay, people actually need this podcast, because I'm getting people who are CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, people who are not afraid to share their failures, who are so real. Because I like people who shares their failures. If you only talk about your success, you're a god, you're an angel, you're not a human being.
And not just that, man, everyone talks about success all the time, because you know what? If we don't give, just the way we're wired, nobody wants to be associated with the weak. So if you're going to go in and be like, "Hey, I'm struggling over here, can you help me?" Most people will not help you. So we're designed to put forth this presentation. Why do you think girls look pretty, guys go to the gym, dress well, drive new cars? The whole point of that is to exude success.
Yes.
Because if you can exude success, then the willingness of somebody
attracts.
paying attention to you is much higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what people fail to realize is that most, like you look at all these athletes, for example. Like I really love NFL football, basketball too, but like football more. And NFL athletes say that practice is harder than the game, because the game is only 2 hours that the people see. They don't see the 7-day week grind that you're putting in 12 hours a day in the weight room, in the practice, in the video, all of that, right? Same with basketball players. People see Steph Curry make that shot. They don't see the repetition of the 1,000 shots he takes every single day.
Yeah.
My friend, go shoot 1,000 basketball hoops in a park. You'll get exhausted.
Wow.
Try doing it the next day again, and then the next day again, and then be like, "Hey, you know what? I got to do this in the morning and the afternoon." So it's just stuff that a lot of people are not necessarily willing to do. And they don't realize that all the people who are quote unquote successful, all they are is just, they do things, they fail all the time, they learn from their failures, the failure humbles them. Even somebody as popular as Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs left Apple and founded Next, versus when he went back to Apple, there was a completely different personality of that man. It was the same name, Steve Jobs, but the individual who ran Apple 1.0 and then started Next was not the same Steve Jobs who went back and took control over Apple after John Scully left, right? So even though the name is the same, it's a completely different human being.
Interesting.
That's why the business did different, because it was the same person, but with a different humility, a different understanding, a different set of experiences, maybe a little bit more clarity. And that's another good joy too, right? As we get older sometimes, and as a young man, everybody wants, we're taught to consume, we're taught that success, that consumption is a signal of success. Right? And when I say consumption, it could be buying a big house, a big car, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Like anything is, so all of those things in my view are consumption. That's how I define those categories. So we were always taught that consumption is a signal of success. And as you get older, your life experiences may evolve that. Because now it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what car I drive. It doesn't bother me because it gets me around. I actually like the fact that I don't have to worry about having the headaches of a nice car.
Time.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's just things like that. And it wasn't long ago that I cared about cars. It's not that I don't enjoy a car. but it's just how much value I put on it versus where my focus really likes.
Yeah.
And that also comes from, now we're going to sound a little bit morbid, is understanding the impermanence we have. I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. Sure, I'm young and healthy, but like I have a finite amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is my finite amount of time going to be spent doing things that are for me, that I view are for me, that I want to do because other people have told me that, hey, this is what is nice? Or do I want to use that time to do something that I feel like, hey, you know what? This is a contribution. This is a service. We're serving people. What can we do to help improve things? What can I do so that, like, you know what? I can live my everyday waking life to do things. Because all human beings need some job.
Yes.
Because you feel a sense of accomplishment. Doesn't matter how small your task is, right?
Yes.
So for me, that's really what became. And then that's why businessmen, they can break them in almost into two buckets. They say, look, are you a missionary or are you a mercenary? And there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, yeah.
There's extremely successful mercenaries.
Yeah.
There's no wrong. But it's much easier to do certain things as a missionary because then resilience and things like that become much easier to digest.
Wow. The last question is when it comes to books, because I'm a big fan of reading. This is what I tell people, that one of the easiest way for you to take people's life experiences and lessons, if you don't see them face to face, just read your books, you know? And what are your top 3 books that have shaped your life that you will recommend to the audience?
You're a very good host. Like you don't make it easy on your guests. You know, that statement you said that the best way to learn about somebody is books. And I shared this with you during the show earlier. I'm not sure if I did in the show or in the pre-notes, but I spent a lot of time in solitude. Just again, my life requires it, and there's nothing wrong with it. And some of my best friends are these great book writers because, like you said, like they give you such an intimate, raw insight into their book.
Yeah.
Then I'm almost like, and they're your masters. Then they don't have to be your friend. You could be their friend.
Yeah.
You can make somebody your master. They don't have to make you your teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like they don't have to make you their student.
Yeah.
You could just say, hey, I'm going to view you as my teacher and I'm going to copy you. Whether or not you call me your student is up to you.
Yes.
Like literally, you can't control, but you can control what you want. Now, you know, same way that like, and I've always been a big reader ever since I was a kid, like right from a young age. From reading newspapers, fighting for that first fresh newspaper, because there's nothing better than being the first person to open up the newspaper, right? So like that's the only reason I woke up early, was I'd be the first person to open up the morning paper. But even in books, just like in skills, I find that given how many books I've read and the various genres of books I've read, there's not really the types of reading I do, I would say I do basically like, I thought about this question a lot. And 3 books is very difficult to come out because there's...
You have variety, you have so much books.
And then like, I've come across such great books from such amazing people that like, they've all impacted me very profoundly. But what I would say is like, you know, there's 3 types of books that like I generally like to read. And, you know, and this is again, going back to like, I said this earlier, we all learn things and absorb things in a different way.
Yes.
What happens is, having read a lot of the books, you realize there's a very high degree of fundamental overlap in the messaging in the books. So what it comes down to is which author's message resonates with what you're trying to accomplish. So the 3 categories of books that I generally like to read, and then I'll name off a couple in each category just so that like it's a little bit more a thing.
Yeah.
So one would be more like, you know, I call it like self-help and self-growth kind of thing, where it's just teaching you, and everything in here is non-technical, okay? So I'm going to assume that you can go to college or university or YouTube or do any online courses to learn the technical skills, whether it's on the job or through a mentor.
Yeah.
So those are not going to be a part of this conversation, but more so around just auxiliary. I read this really great book by Darren Hardy. It's called The Compound Effect.
Yes.
Have you read it?
No, I know Darren Hardy, but not that book. I know him. Yeah.
My friend,
You know,
that book is I
YouTube.
think 120 pages. It is a book that in my view, every single person should read. It's so easy to read. And the sooner you read it, the better the effect, because compound really shows its effect over time. So the more time you have to compound, the greater the returns. So the compound effect is something I would definitely highly recommend. I'm not going to get into the messages of the books because otherwise our podcast will never end.
Yes.
But compound effect for self-help and growth. Then in that genre, there's two other great books that I read in that genre that are a little bit more like, you've already obviously heard of David Goggins. His book Can't Hurt Me was actually a quite good book. That really is a story about resilience. And then when I read Can't Hurt Me, and I was talking to a buddy about it, he actually recommended a similar book to me, written by a Navy SEAL. You've probably heard of him too, Jocko Willink.
No.
Okay. They do a podcast as well. Excuse me. He's got this book called Extreme Ownership.
Interesting title.
That book is truly a game changer as far as like self-help and self-growth goes. It just really helped open up my eyes from being skeptical to how decisions are made. And it's very like, and I'm struggling to how to articulate it, right? But like what happens is oftentimes when decisions get made, we sit there and we scrutinize the decision without understanding why it's made. Or we look at the negative side of it. And again, a lot of it is noise from the media.
Yeah.
But that's how we view it. So extreme ownership really helped open up my mind a little bit more to that regards. Then a second category of books that I would like sort of get into is like, so we've got the self-help, self-growth. And the second one is just like building up like soft skills, I guess, if you want to call it. So then you have guys like authors like Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman is a Nobel Prize winning author who's done phenomenal work on just human behavior and decisions and stuff like that. His books are both incredible. He's got two of them. Then there's another really powerful book called Anti-Fragile by Nicholas Nassim Taleb.
Anti-Fragile. Okay.
It was mind-numbing in terms of just these have been very influential in the way I've taken, because for these books that I'm sharing, they've given me very high-level takeaways that I've been very fortunate enough to apply in my life that have yielded great results.
Awesome.
So not only are they great stories, but they're also things. And then the last one is, I really enjoy, like, as I started practicing yoga, I really got into philosophy, like spirituality, religion. So in that domain, like there's a few books that like I've read, and again, more so from just helping me understand my purpose, the clarity, like the oneness with like higher powers, and like, because what those books do is they make you look past yourself.
Yeah.
Because the first couple of categories are very I.
Yeah.
The third one is everything but I. And I was very lucky to have that. And then, in those domains, like it's very personal. Again, I said like what I do first is go for the takeaways.
Yeah.
And then finally, if I want to look at just from like a biography standpoint, because I do like a lot of autobiographies, trying to think of the author's name. There's this one author who's really, really good. Okay, this is little homework you could do for him. Or hold on 1 second. I'm going to pull out our phone on our little podcast.
Yes,
I got to look up this author's name, because it's for me, and this is something that I learned from school when I was in university. Sorry for our listeners. I use school and university interchangeably. School is an institution for learning.
Yeah.
What title I give it is the same.
Yeah.
But what I learned from my days in university was, and this is one of my mentors, like one of my teaching assistants who was older than me, when I asked him for advice, he taught me this. Don't pick the course or the book based on the title. Base it on the teacher and the author. Because if the teacher and the author is good, doesn't matter what they have to say, it's valuable.
Interesting. Wow, that's interesting.
It doesn't matter how boring it sounds. If it's delivered by a person who loves it, you're going to love it. And it doesn't matter how sexy it sounds. If it's a salesy thing, then you're going to have a salesy conversation. Like we're 90 minutes into this podcast recording where, initially we had anticipated 30. So again, I'm assuming I'm somewhat entertaining to either that or give you this. I just want to give you Walter Isaacson. I didn't even have to look him up. His name just came up.
Nice,
so Walter Isaacson is an incredible writer. And there's only so many people who've had, he won't write for a lot of people. And there's only so many people, some of the most successful people in the world invite him to write about him. Like one of the greatest biographies I've read on Steve Jobs was written by Walter Isaacson.
Oh, wow. Okay. Check him out.
It's an incredible author. So in terms of biographies, just the funnest ones that I've had for autobiographies was, I really like shoes, but like Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog, about Nike was hell of a great story. It's funny to know that for most people that don't know, Nike was broke. Nike was less than 1 month away from broke for almost 15 years of its existence until it went public. Up until the day that they went public, they struggled to find ways to they somehow always found enough money to pay the next month's bill, but they were always short of bill payments. Half their offices had like broken windows and stuff. So anyway, it's just a hell of a great fun story of Nike.
Wow.
So Nike was, the Shoe Dog is the name of the book. That's Phil Knight. Then the Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson is incredibly again, Steve Jobs to me is just a very pivotal character in our generation's livelihood, just of how much transformation he's made.
He did, yeah.
And the way he's made it. And then actually reading his book about that, I got into this Indian spiritual guy called Paramahansa Yogananda.
I haven't heard of him.
And again, that's just like a little mystical book. It's just fun, right? Like, because sometimes people, I guess, as adults, and this is where I think the magic of children and pets comes into play. As adults, sometimes we lose the belief in the magic, the miracle.
Yeah.
Whereas kids and animals, they have that, right?
Make believe,
So by reading certain books like this, I don't expect a story where some guy's his arm got cut off and his arm grew back. I know my arm is not going to grow back if I amputate it. You know what I mean? But it's a reminder that don't lose that essence of hope, that magic. Right? So anyways, so those are the three genres of books that have typically been thing, and then just dropped a few titles. Because again, they've all been such wonderful reads. And then two other great ones if you want to read just from a fun viewpoint.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to whether you want to be corporate focused, you want to be spiritual focused, you want to be lifestyle focused, right? There's so many different views that it's really not, there's no one way. And as long as the message is good. Two other really good biographies just from a business standpoint, if you want to look at a business book. One's called A Ride of a Lifetime. That's written by Bob Iger. He was the former CEO of Disney. Then he stopped down to get Bob Chapek or somebody like that becoming the CEO. And then that guy was so awful that they hired Bob Iger back. So his book, Ride of a Lifetime, is really, really cool just to talk about how he came into Disney and how he became the head of... Brother, to be the CEO of Disney is powerful. He's a no-name... He's not a blue-blooded guy. He's just a regular street guy who made it to the head of Disney. So a really cool book. Again, series of good opportunities and timing and all of that. And then on that note, another fun book is, and this is something he's really, really powerful, is this Schwartz? Schwartz? I forget, the guy who owns BlackRock. It's called What It Takes.
Wow, these are interesting titles. I'll check them out myself.
BlackRock was founded by, it's called Blackstone, I believe. Yeah, anyways, Blackstone is started by this, and this gentleman is one of the richest men in the world. And he was actually, Steven Schwartzman or Steven Schwartz, one of those, so I forget his exact name. That's what I was just trying to look at. But he a few years ago, made the largest donation in the history of Oxford University. Wow. And a university, and I think some university in Shanghai or Beijing is named after him. Like he's actually informing, and it's called What It Takes. But his story is a little bit more coming from not privilege, but being in that privileged setting. Whereas Bob Eager's story is a story of like how I made myself.
I made yourself.
Right?
Wow.
So again, it's just like, it's really cool to have all of those, right? Because some people have systems that allow them to get into a certain setting.
Yeah.
Some people need to start at the
Start
bottom.
from scratch.
Some
yeah.
people need to meander way around. Sometimes we're doing things in life, not understanding where they will help us in the future.
Yeah.
So all these cool books help share those, how those loose threads come and tie back together.
Wow, awesome. Well, this is a wrap. Before we end, kindly share with the audience how they can reach out to you in terms of your business or your own personal connection.
Man, thank you so much for having me. You know what? This has been such a wonderful conversation. It's been so loving and natural where like we've just maintained a beautiful organic communication here of some good topics. And for our users, visit Meal Deals. If you Google search Meal Deals app, MEALDEALS app, we are the first search result. Our SEO is pretty good. We're not in any app store. We are a website. It's called a web app. Or you can visit it by just typing in mealdeals.app, MEALDEALS.app in any browser. And then for restaurants, right in there, we have a restaurant sign-up page. It says partner.mealdeals.app. But other than that, our hope is that, Meal Deals helps you find some great deals. And in times where you're like, I'd like to go out and save a couple of bucks, we can help make that happen for you.
Wonderful. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it.
And then what we'll also do is we'll have all our links shared with you. So in your show notes and show transcripts.
Yes.
For Better Talks, please, we'll have some of those. So if any of your listeners ever want to get some more details, then I'll put in a link to my LinkedIn and stuff like that. So if anybody ever wants to reach out to us, that's their way.
Wonderful. That's a wrap.